here, so I'm going to try my best to take pauses so I could see what's going on in the chat and see if there's any questions. For whatever reason, if I don't get to your question, I will try to make sure to reach out to you separately. So we're going to be talking about classroom leaderboards today, and I'm also going to be talking about a chance for you to give this professional development session and actually get swag for your classroom, get Duolingo swag for your classroom. So at the end of the session, I'm going to talk a little bit more in details about what this deal is with this professional development and opportunity to get swag, which everyone loves getting. So let's get started. So some of you may be thinking, wait a second, there are classroom leaderboards. You're not simply talking about the Duolingo leaderboards where, you know, you're trying to desperately win or get in the top 3 of the Diamond League. Exactly. So I'm talking about Duolingo for Schools classroom leaderboards. So these were launched shortly, if you do not know, these were launched shortly before the 2022-2023 academic year. And we're really stoked to help to stoke some friendly competition within your classes. So we're really excited to help you start some competition within your classes. So just a little bit of information about the leaderboards. In order to see those classroom leaderboards, you actually need to turn them on in the settings of your Duolingo for Schools account. And please know that if you do turn them on, your students are no longer to be able to participate in the public leaderboard. So just keep that in mind. Another thing to know is that your class leaderboards will reset every week in order to give everyone a shot to get within the top 3, where their name's going to appear as it does in this picture here with a ribbon, either gold, silver, bronze. This is really important because we think that everyone should be able to have an equal chance to get to the top 3. As you see as well in the screenshot, the leaderboards are based upon XP, which are experience points that your students earn throughout the week by doing Duolingo lessons. And currently students can only see the leaderboard on their desktop. So please be aware that for now, they can only see this on their desktop, but we are planning on bringing this feature to their mobile devices soon. Students also can see how many days are remaining. So you can see there are 6 days remaining here. And that's because you could actually change the day that your leaderboard starts and ends within your settings. So for example, if you have a class that meets Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you prefer to start and end these on Friday, you're able to change those settings in your Duolingo for Schools dashboard. And if you ever feel like classroom leaderboards are simply not a good fit for your students, you can disable classroom leaderboards in your privacy settings. So you do that by simply toggling the button to the left of the classroom leaderboards, and that's going to put it to that off position, and they're no longer to be displayed to your students. But if you do feel as if classroom leaderboards are for you and you want to try them out, let's talk a little bit about how you can leverage these leaderboards in your classroom. So I have a question for you now that we have the chat feature working. The question is, do you already use classroom leaderboards? What do you think about them? What do your students think about them? So let me know in the chat. Do you already use classroom leaderboards? What exactly are your thoughts? What are your students' thoughts? Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. So let me know. And if you don't use classroom leaderboards, do you use any other type of competition in your class with your students? My students, when I was teaching French in New York, my students, I taught at the middle school level mostly. I did teach high school 1 year, but mostly at middle school level. And my students loved competition. Anything they could do to be competitive, they would just run with it. They would be so excited. I never used Duolingo for Schools in my classroom because I didn't know that it was available. I didn't know that it existed. I knew Duolingo existed, of course, so I would suggest for them to study on Duolingo, but I didn't know Duolingo for Schools existed. And so I know, though, that my students would have loved this leaderboard function. They would have been really excited by it. Hey, Pamela. So let me know if you already use classroom leaderboards. What are some of your thoughts about it? So the leaderboards come up, but they don't correspond with the Duolingo week. Okay, so if you're having a little bit of issues with your leaderboards at all and you've checked your settings, whenever you have any, perhaps a bug, feel free to send an email to teachers@duolingo.com. If you ever think that you're experiencing any type of bug, let us know your username, as well as any student usernames that may be affected. And if you're able to attach screenshots to that email as well, that would be great. And those emails get directly sent to our support staff. So they'll be very quick to help you. So feel free to reach out to teachers@duolingo.com if you're having any type of issue with leaderboards. Good way to promote friendly competition. Every week, the top 3 gets a colorful certificate. Awesome. Give out stickers or candies at the end of the week. Awesome. So okay, so some people having issue with some points not being seen on their end. So been showing their points through that. Yeah. If you have any issues at all, make sure to send a message to teachers@duolingo.com. We could take a look at it. Also, you feel free to post in the Educators Network. If you are a part of the Educators Network, to see if other people are having any issues. Sometimes it needs to be refreshed as well. So let's talk about some ways you could leverage these leaderboards. So the first way is, some people already mentioned in the chat, are weekly rewards, right? So these weekly rewards could be anything really. You could be rewarding the students who are on the leaderboard, or you could be rewarding all of your students for other ways of showing progress, streaks, or how many lessons they've created or finished, excuse me, and of their own personal growth, for example. But for the top 3, people were mentioning that they're giving candy and other little prizes. So that's one way. Stickers, for example, that you could be showing their achievements. But you could also do something called a class economy. So this image here are some of these Duolingo dollars, Duo dollars that we created. And we have created these printouts for you to use in your class economy in denominations of 1, 5, 50, and 100. So you could be giving them to all of your students in your class, and maybe the top 3 are getting a set amount of Duo dollars. For example, for first place, they get 300 Duo dollars, second place, 200 Duo dollars, and third place, 100 Duo dollars. And then you give some Duo dollars to your rest of your class, depending upon their personal best or their XP, etc. So that way everyone is participating in this class economy. So we really suggest that to avoid demotivating the other students who aren't in the top 3 for that week, that you also choose, right, to acknowledge and celebrate their own personal improvement from week to week with some Duo dollars or with another way that you show appreciation. If you do decide to create a class economy, though, and give away these Duo dollars for a chance to cash them in for rewards, make sure that you are clear and intentional about how students can earn these Duo dollars, what the amount is going to be exactly, and what they are able to purchase. So for example, some ideas that students may be able to purchase with these Duo dollars in your class economy from week to week could include an opportunity to listen to music on their headphones, choosing where to sit for the week, choosing the review game the class will play that day, bonus points for a test or quiz, perhaps stickers, candy, or other small prizes, 15 minutes of free time, a free homework pass, or perhaps even a redo of a test or quiz. So these are just examples. Of course, you know your students best, their unique needs, and their things that they're interested in. So you could really offer anything up for sale in a class economy. So I'm actually going to make sure to drop this link to all of these PDFs that you could download and use these Duo dollars if you so choose. So all these images that we have here, they're just all found under our resources in our Zen desk. So I just sent you a PDF to that. But remember, any way that you do want to decide to leverage this competition, make sure you want it to be light. You don't want it to be high stakes by any means. So high stakes, I mean, you don't want these classroom leaderboards to be attached to a grade that goes in your grade book. Something like that is going to cause students to feel pressure to succeed, which would then in turn cause them to feel stress and anxiety. And that's not our intended outcome with these little types of competition in this leaderboard specifically. We would like students to be having fun and encouraged to learn, motivated. So for that reason, we definitely caution you to create any of these competition around a high stakes element, such as a grade. So something like class economy, where students are trading in those dollars that they earn for something fun and small and easy, is a really just great way to motivate and to encourage participation. And we also want to make sure that all of our students are encouraged to win throughout the academic year. And so that's why it's especially important that from week to week, that leaderboard is resetting. Some other ways to kind of spice up that competition. We're seeing two images here that I'm going to talk about. So 3 different ways, and I'm going to talk about all of these. The first one is class to class with the same teacher. The next one is class to class with a different teacher. And then lastly, adults versus students. And so I'm going to talk about these in detail. So the class to class with the same teacher. So if you teach multiple sections of the same level, we suggest that you try creating a visual, perhaps in your classroom, perhaps in your hallway, where you're keeping track of these leaderboards and XP from class to class. This is a great way to encourage even further participation and competition amongst your classes. We do suggest, however, that you foster these additional competitions among students at the same level or with similar abilities. And that's the reason for that is as students in a more advanced class, for example, may have an advantage over beginner level class because perhaps they meet more often than lower levels, and thus they're expected to be completing more lessons on Duolingo, for example. So just keep that in mind, that the level of ability may play a role in the ability to participate in these competitions. However, if you do have a beginner student who is blowing out of the water all of the more advanced students and older students, that probably does deserve a serious shout out and kudos. So definitely make sure you shout out that student. Next way is class to class, but with a different teacher. So if you have another world language teacher in your building, think about ways that you can collaborate with that teacher and create some competition between your students and theirs. So we see an example here of Senora Bell and Senora Taylor, both educators in our Educators Network. And here, actually, they're creating friendly competition between their Spanish heritage speakers in their classrooms. So they're 2 separate classrooms. They both have Spanish heritage speakers, and they wanted to create a leaderboard specifically for that. And in our Educators Network, we were talking about how other students can get involved with these leaderboards and cheer others on. And Pamela, who's actually here in the chat, thank you, Pamela, she had this really great idea for Senora Bell and Senora Taylor and how others can encourage these heritage speakers to keep learning and keep progressing on Duolingo. So what she had suggested is that you reward the other students with perhaps little stickers, for example, during class, and then they're allowed to go up to the physical leaderboard and vote for one of their classmates and put a sticker next to their name. They could be voting for a way to boost their position on the leaderboard, for example, or they could be simply giving them a sticker, think of it as like giving them a kudo in class, like kudos, to give them additional duo dollars if you're in a class economy. But this is would be a really great way to encourage participation, of course, and also for these heritage speakers, specifically in this example, to take on a more leadership role in that class. So even if you don't have heritage speakers, as in this example, you can still foster the same type of encouragement between your students and the same type of competition between your class and another teacher's class. For example, you could be to encourage this same type of encouragement and positive, friendly competition between your students. You could ask your students to be intentional when they give a sticker or a shout out or a kudo to another classmate on the leaderboard, or it could be anyone in class, and maybe they get duo dollars, for example. Perhaps, for example, one of your students helped another student with a concept that they were struggling with, and so they wanted to give them, a shout out or a sticker next to their name on the leaderboard. and they're intentional with the way that they're shouting out that student, and they're saying, this is for, X student because they helped me understand how to conjugate verbs in the past tense yesterday, for example. So that way you're really encouraging your students to cheer others on, to be positive, to be uplifting one another, as well as encouraging students to take on leadership roles in your class and help one another as well. And then lastly, we see another image here. This is an example of adults versus students. So in this example, this is from Jan from our Educators Network as well. What she does is she displays the top 10 on her board, and she also acknowledges the staff who participate using a different color. So the staff in her school who are participating on the leaderboards, she's also including them, so students are able to see that and compete with these adults as well. So this is a really great way to, of course, further promote participation on Duolingo as students are going through lessons, increasing their proficiency, of course, but in a fun manner. And I say adults and not simply, school staff, because this could also include parents, really. You could, if you choose, include parents on your leaderboards and in your classes. So one, that they're involved and they know exactly what their students are learning. So if anything ever happens, they're able to help as well, their student. But also it's just fun for students and kids to be able to participate and to compete against adults. Next, some people mentioned this in the chat as well, in our top 3 certificates. So this certificate here that you see was also a resource created in the Educators Network. So we very often share resources, so another great reason to join us. I'm going to actually share this link as well. So you have the link to this certificate. So if you choose to download and use it, you may. So for example, you could be giving these top 3 certificates week to week. If you choose, every week you could be making these certificates and celebrating those top 3. If you do that week to week, you could perhaps have a bit of a celebratory moment in your class, a little award ceremony where you're encouraging other students to be clapping for them and to be congratulating them as well. Or you could also decide to do an end of the year ceremony with these top 3 certificates as well. So as I mentioned, I sent out that, I included that link, so you're able to download and use a certificate of achievement if you would like. And it's a really great way to encourage student progress, acknowledge student progress, encourage participation, and really foster a sense of pride for those students who have won, who have gotten within that top 3. I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to see what's going on in the chat, see if anyone has any questions. Feel free to use the Q&A section. Yeah, I love the beat the teacher idea. Yeah, absolutely. Who doesn't want to beat the teacher? Who doesn't want to beat their parent too? Pamela, I know, who is here as well, has mentioned that Pamela, you also put yourself in the leaderboards, and students get really excited to see how well they're competing against you too. Yeah, they love beating you. Yep. That's awesome, Enrique. Thanks. For the students that are consistently low, I try to get them to compete against their high score from the previous week. Absolutely. So that way that they're still achieving, right? And they have their own personal best that they're trying to be, and 100% acknowledging them is really important to help continue motivating them to be still studying, still learning, still progressing down the path, and of course, increasing their proficiency along the way. So 100%, so glad that you do that. Yeah, one class is someone who is consistently in first, and so the others like to try and topple her reign. I love that. I give out Duolingo certificates for the top 3 in each class. Awesome, Mary. Awesome. I'm curious to know how often they're able to topple her reign. Very cool. So a couple more tips as well that I want to share with you. Some of these things we've already seen. So the first tip is make that learning visible. So we've already seen this, right, with creating a leaderboard in your hallway, somewhere in your classroom, so that competition and thus that student XP, which is representative of their learning, right, is visible to your students, as well as other students and even administrators, for example. Anyone who walks by that leaderboard are able to see that competition, able to see that learning of your students every day. So one of our educators in the Educators Network, actually Edson, he shared with me this image where he actually shares the results week to week in his class WhatsApp group, which is really interesting. So it's a really unique way for him to be sharing that and making that learning and that progress and these achievements visible to his class. So we see that image here. He creates colorful certificates as well as calls out the top 5 and encourages all of his students to be giving him a shout out and encouraging and cheering them along the way. Another thing I want to mention too with that, if you do have a physical leaderboard, is to update that leaderboard regularly and involve students while doing so. For example, you're in the middle of class, you notice that that Duolingo leaderboard needs to be updated from, the previous night's work. We suggest that you, do a little celebratory moment in class right then and there with the leaderboard. Ask the students who passed that student at number 1, toppled their reign, as you mentioned, Mary. Ask that student to come up, go ahead and put their name on the top spot of the leaderboard, and encourage all of the students to cheer them on, of course. And you're going to make sure that all of the messaging is friendly, it's encouraging, everyone's cheering each other on as they compete. So runs into our next tip there is encourage students to cheer others on, of course. And lastly, I wanted to mention is encourage goal setting. So we see that image here, the way that your student has the ability to edit their daily goal. So helping students to make goals for themselves is a really great way for teachers to instill motivation for their students, as well as a desire to learn. And encourages growth and progression in their proficiency as they are moving through the Duolingo path. And as it was already mentioned in the chats, you could be, depending upon the daily goal, for example, if a student of yours has, 20 XP daily goal, and you see that week by week, they may not be on the leaderboard, but they're consistently making and achieving their daily goal, that's something that still should be rewarded and congratulated for, because that's their personal best, their progress, and that's important to celebrate as well. So I want to mention a couple shout outs from Educators Network. So I've been talking about our Educators Network. I've been sharing resources from our Educators Network as well as images. I'm going to share the link for anyone that may be here who is not already part of our Educators Network. I'm going to encourage you to join. It's our private Facebook group where we have teachers all over the world who utilize Duolingo and are constantly collaborating. So please join us. I just shared the link. So a couple other things from our Educators Network, a couple other shout outs. Jan, she mentions that she has a display where the top 10 names in the XP amounts are shown, and she awards certificates every Monday. And she hasn't noticed that the children lower down on the board are demotivated, but she does award them occasionally in other ways, such as personal best, completing X amount of levels, etc. So again, exactly as we mentioned, Liz is mentioning the same here. I love the idea of rewarding personal best and other non-numerical achievements. So as I mentioned, these are 2 great examples of ways you're still encouraging those students, whether or not they're on that leaderboard, you're still encouraging them to continue their learning. And then Pamela, as I mentioned, she says that she also puts herself in all of her classes and she shows the students just how much they are beating her by, and they really love that. I know Pamela is always on Duolingo studying multiple languages, so I'm sure that the students love competing with her and love being able to see how much XP points they are able to get over her. And that is about the end of our professional development about classroom leaderboards. Any questions at all, please make sure you ask those questions either in the chat or the Q&A section. If I don't get a chance to answer your question now, like I mentioned, I'll make sure to reach out. But if later on you have another question, you could always send an email to educators at Duolingo.com if you have questions, or teachers at Duolingo.com, and we're here to help. But I have a question for you. If you have any feedback at all about how we can improve the leaderboard experience for you and your students, I'd be really interested to hear it. So this leaderboard functionality is quite new. It's only been around for a couple months, so we're still working out ways. We have some ideas. We're working out ways to improve it for you. Some things that are coming very soon that I would love to tell you about, but you'll find out very, very soon. The Educators Network will find out first. So if you are a part of that, you'll be the first to know some updates coming. But let me know if there's any way that you personally think that we can improve the leaderboard experience for your students and for your classes. We love getting feedback from our teachers, so please let us know. And as I mentioned many, many times, I'm going to mention again, shout out Educators Network. You're first to know about any updates. We're always asking for feedback there. We're consistently meeting with teachers and putting their feedback directly into our product and making changes based upon what everyone needs, what they say in the Educators Network. It's very important to us because even though, I was a past language teacher, I'm not in the classroom anymore. I'm not using Duolingo for Schools in the classroom anymore. We have a test class where we use Duolingo for Schools, but it's not nearly the same as actually being in the class with students. So we really appreciate your feedback. And one way we get it is through our Educators Network. So please join us there. And if you're not on Facebook and you don't have time to join us, you can follow us on our other social media accounts. We have Twitter, we have TikTok, we have a public Facebook group if you prefer not to join us on our private group. And we have an Instagram account too. So please join us there and stay informed and collaborate with us. So I'm now going to talk a little bit about how to get some swag. But before I do, I'm going to take a moment to take a look at the chat. Ability to quickly see the progress rate compared to last week. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. The ability to be able to see that progress quickly is really important. I currently do it by downloading the points in the previous week on Excel, comparing points to this week. Okay. Yes. So making that easier for you, being able to see that data. Awesome. I'd like the idea of making sure to acknowledge non-leaderboard students. Yes, absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Oh, yeah, shout outs about the Educators Network. Thank you. Future webinars. Yes, we are working on future webinars with some different time zones. So if you have any suggestions on what time works best for you, please let us know. If not, our webinars are always recorded, so you'll definitely be sent a link to a recording. But let me know what time would work best for you, because I am working on figuring out different time zones and when exactly to give these PD sessions. It's definitely hard to reach everyone at once, but I definitely want to acknowledge that I know that different time zones, gotta have to try out some different times for these PD sessions. So now I'm going to talk about how to get swag for your classroom. This is one of the questions I get very often. I love giving swag out to teachers and students because they get so excited and it helps motivate them to, for example, if you get stickers from Duolingo and you're able to give away stickers to the top 3 in the classroom leaderboard, that's something that's going to motivate your students, right? So if you're interested in getting swag as well as giving PD, professional development, this is what we are suggesting, we're proposing. We suggest that you download this slide deck, and in a moment, I'm going to show you exactly where to find this slide deck. Schedule your PD session, invite attendees, fill out a presenter form. I'm going to show you where to find it as well. You're going to share some info as well as pictures with us to get your swag. And then we're going to make sure that you have your attendees fill out an attendee feedback too. So a little bit of information about attendee recruiting ideas. We suggest that you schedule a PD session with your department. For example, if you at your school, you have a world language department, we suggest setting up a professional development setting with them. If you don't have a department that you could run a PD session with, we could suggest that you post about it on Twitter, tag us, we'll be able to retweet you. Maybe you could collaborate with some world language teachers through there or through other social media accounts. Or you could also be recruiting teachers from the Educators Network and talking to teachers on the Educators Network, posting about it, and hopefully recruiting people through there as well so that they can attend your professional development session. And as I mentioned, where to find these professional development materials, they are currently all are on the Educators Network. So in this image, we're seeing under right next to the discussion under guides, if you scroll all the way down, you're going to find professional development. And this is where all of these materials are hosted. So you have all of the slide decks necessary. So both this slide deck to this leaderboards professional development session, but as well as the past weeks that I have done. If you came to our classroom gamification with Duolingo professional development, or if you came to our professional development about Duolingo podcast, as well as more to come, all of these slide decks will be there available to download so you could host this PD session yourself. As I mentioned, there's also the presenter feedback form here. So this is what you're going to be filling out after you've recruited some teachers, have finished your PD session. You'll fill this form out in order to get your swag, of course. We're going to ask you some details like who attended, a picture, an attendee list if possible, as well as how it went, and then an attendee feedback form. So this is really important. We ask that you provide this to your attendees so that we can know a little bit more on their end, how the PD went and what kind of PD they'd like to see in the future. And if you, for whatever reason, you say, for example, you have a department meeting, it's an hour long. This is about a 30-minute long professional development slide deck. So if you need a work session idea really to beef up this professional development and create a little more substance to it, some examples of doing that is to be discussing techniques from the session, brainstorm new ideas, breaking out into groups to brainstorm what these ideas might look like in the classroom, and then that actionable item at the end, which I know is really important and really nice to have, especially at a department meeting where you walk away and having done something, create a new lesson plan around one of your or our or any of our teachers from the Educators Network's ideas. So when you're able to walk away from a department reading, right, or from a professional development session, and you're able to have that item, the actionable item finished, the lesson plan, where tomorrow you could go and be, you know, implicating this new technique is really important. So any other questions, please make sure to reach out to us at educators@duolingo.com. If you have questions about Duolingo for Schools in general and any of our functionality, you can also check out our help center as well, which is going to be accessed from the left-hand side of your Duolingo for Schools account. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I hope to see everyone in the Educators Network. I'm going to take a look at the chat. Yes, my students love stickers. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. So I really hope to see everyone in the Educators Network, as I mentioned. Thank you. Thank you. And next week, we'll have another professional development session. So I hope to see you then as well. Bye, everybody. Thank you.